I remember the hum of the city, that constant, low thrum beneath everything, a melody I thought I knew by heart. Chicago was my home, its gritty beauty woven into the very fabric of my soul, just like the jazz I played. I was Leo Maxwell, 31, a saxophonist, a music teacher, living a life that, for a long time, felt like a perfectly improvised solo, unexpected, rich, full of emotion. My tenor sax, a vintage Selmer Mark VI, was an extension of me, its brass glinting under the stage lights, its voice echoing the deepest parts of my spirit. I poured myself into my music, into teaching my students to find their own rhythm, and into my relationship with Sophia. She was everything I thought I wanted, everything I believed I needed. Our apartment in Logan Square was a kaleidoscope of art books, instruments, and vintage finds. We built it together, piece by piece, a bohemian sanctuary amidst the urban sprawl. Sophia, with her cascade of dark curls and eyes that sparkled with a perpetual, knowing mischief, was a social media manager. She navigated the digital world with an effortless grace that always fascinated me. She was vibrant, quick-witted, and possessed a laugh that could make me forget every wrong note I'd ever played. I adored her. I saw her as my muse, the vibrant, chaotic counterpoint to my more structured, melodic nature. Our love story felt like a perfectly balanced duet, my grounded harmonies supporting her dazzling, improvisational flourishes. It was passionate, intense, and for a long time, I believed it was unbreakable. My greatest joy was watching her across a crowded room, a natural magnet, drawing people in with her easy charm, and knowing that at the end of the night, she was mine. I trusted her implicitly. That trust, I would later learn, was a canvas she simply chose to paint over. We met at an open mic night, not mine, but a friend's poetry reading. I was sipping a stout in the back, observing, and she walked in, late, apologizing with a smile that disarmed the entire room. She tripped over a microphone stand, laughed, and somehow managed to make clumsiness look elegant. I was captivated. We talked for hours that night, about art, about life, about the elusive nature of creativity. She said my hands, with their long, musician's fingers, were beautiful. I remember feeling a flush spread across my chest, a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Our early days were a whirlwind. Dinners in dimly lit speakeasies, late-night walks along Lake Michigan, the wind whipping our hair as we talked about our dreams, our fears, our grand visions for the future. She made me feel seen, truly seen, in a way no one ever had before. She'd listen intently as I described the feeling of a particular chord progression, the way a melody could unfold like a story. She'd nod, her eyes wide, telling me I was a poet with my horn. I loved her for that. I loved her for seeing past the quiet guy and into the depth of my passion. Looking back, there were whispers, tiny dissonances in the harmony. She had a way of charming everyone, sometimes to an almost alarming degree. A flirty glance here, a casual touch there, always explained away as just being friendly. Or, that's just how I am, Leo. You know that. Once, early on, I mentioned feeling a little uncomfortable with how close she seemed to be getting with a male client, how she'd text him late at night. She'd bristled, saying I was being insecure, that I needed to trust her, that her career involved networking. She said I was too sensitive, a phrase that would echo in my mind for months to come. It wasn't a scream, just a murmur, easily dismissed by the overwhelming crescendo of my affection for her. I wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that my possessiveness was simply a lingering shadow from past hurts, not a premonition. I was so in love, so ready to commit, that I folded these tiny concerns into the larger narrative of our perfect romance, bending them to fit, rather than acknowledging their sharp edges. I told myself it was my problem, not hers. Then came Nico. He arrived like a sudden, jarring chord, a new element that subtly shifted the entire composition of our life. Sophia was thrilled. She'd landed a major campaign for a new beverage brand, and their concept involved collaborating with a rising star DJ, Nico Moretti. She spoke of him with an effervescent energy, describing him as a visionary, a true artist. At first, I was happy for her. Her career was taking off, and I genuinely wanted to see her succeed. She began spending late nights at creative sessions with Nico, often at his studio downtown, sometimes at various pop-up events. She'd return home, energized, buzzing with ideas, but also a little distant. The scent of her shampoo would be mingled with a faint, unfamiliar cologne. I'd ask about her day, about the campaign, genuinely interested. She'd tell me snippets, always highlighting Nico's brilliance, his innovative ideas. My questions about the late hours, about the growing frequency of these sessions, were met with a patient sigh, sometimes an eye roll. Leo, she'd say, this is what it takes to make it in this industry. It's demanding, it's not a 9 to 5. Don't be so provincial. She'd tell me I was being an artist with a fragile ego, needing constant reassurance, needing her to be chained to our apartment. She'd say I was trying to hold her back, to stifle her ambition. The words stung. I'd retreat, feeling a tightness in my chest, a gnawing uncertainty in my gut. I told myself I was being unreasonable. She was right. I was an artist, and maybe my own anxieties about my career, about the unpredictable nature of my chosen path, were projecting onto her. I hated feeling insecure, hated feeling jealous, so I pushed those feelings down, deep into the recesses of my being, hoping they'd simply dissolve. I tried harder to be supportive, to be the understanding partner she accused me of not being. I'd bring her coffee to her office, offer to pick her up, but she always declined, saying she needed to stay in the zone, or that Nico would drop her. The small gestures, once welcomed, now felt like interruptions. The destabilization began subtly, a slow erosion of my peace of mind. Our shared moments, once so frequent and spontaneous, became scheduled, almost performative. Our intimate conversations dwindled, replaced by her recounting exciting anecdotes about her day with Nico. She'd talk about their synergy, their shared vision, their unparalleled creative chemistry. I'd sit there, listening, a forced smile on my face, feeling like an audience member in my own life. My saxophone, once my constant companion, started to feel heavy, an extension of the silence that was growing between us. I'd pick it up, run my fingers over the cool brass, but the notes wouldn't come, not with the same effortless flow. There was a knot in my stomach, a persistent ache that I couldn't ignore. One evening, I'd planned a special dinner, hoping to rekindle some of the old magic. I'd cooked her favorite pasta, lit candles, put on some quiet jazz. She arrived home well past 9, looking exhausted but exhilarated. She barely noticed the effort I'd put in. "Oh, this looks nice," she mumbled, before immediately launching into a story about a late-night brainstorm with Nico, how they'd stumbled upon this genius idea. She talked for 20 minutes straight, her eyes bright, her hands gesturing excitedly, entirely oblivious to the food getting cold, to the silence I was offering. When I gently tried to interject, to tell her about my day, about a breakthrough with a student, she cut me off. "Leo," she said, her voice tinged with impatience, "can we just focus on my day for a second? This is a huge campaign, and I'm under a lot of pressure. You wouldn't understand." I felt a cold current wash over me. The meal ended in strained silence. I cleared the plates, the pasta congealed, the candles flickering forlornly. That night, she turned her back to me in bed, her breathing even, while I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the Chicago hum a mocking drone in my ears. I felt utterly alone, completely invisible. The psychological pressure escalated. She started openly comparing me to Nico. "He's so driven," she'd say, "always pushing boundaries, never afraid to take risks. He understands the grind. Your music, Leo, it's beautiful, but it's so safe. Predictable." The words were a direct hit, aimed straight at the heart of my artistic identity. My music wasn't just sounds. It was my expression, my vulnerability, my truth. To call it safe felt like an invalidation of my entire being. I tried to defend myself, to explain the nuances of my style, the deliberate choices in my improvisation. She'd just wave her hand dismissively. "Don't be so sensitive, Leo. It's just an observation. You're always so precious about your work." She made me feel like my feelings were an inconvenience, my passion a weakness. I started second-guessing everything. Was I too comfortable? Was my music stagnant? Was I, in fact, holding her back? The doubts began to fester, twisting my perception of myself, making me question the very essence of who I was. I found myself trying to be more like the person she described Nico to be, more edgy, more risky, both in my music and in my personality. It was a futile effort. I wasn't him. I was me. But she had planted a seed of dissatisfaction that was now growing into a thorny bush, choking out my self-esteem. One rainy Tuesday, it all came crashing down. Sophia had just come home from another creative session with Nico. She was in the shower, the sound of the water a soft roar from the bathroom. I was on the couch, trying to read, but my mind kept drifting. My phone was dead, so I reached for Sophia's, which was charging on the coffee table, thinking I'd just check the time, maybe catch up on a news headline. My fingers brushed against the screen, and just a notification popped up. It was from Nico. My heart lurched, a sharp, unwelcome beat. The message flashed. Asterisk can't wait for our private jam session tonight. I'm still buzzing from yesterday. Asterisk private jam session. Buzzing. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. My breath caught in my throat. Every gut feeling, every dismissed doubt, every tiny whisper of insecurity coalesced into a deafening roar. I felt a tremor run through my hands. My rational mind screamed at me to put the phone down, to respect her privacy. But another part, a primal, desperate part, urged me on. This wasn't about privacy anymore. It was about survival. With a sickening sense of dread, I unlocked her phone. Her passcode was our anniversary. A cruel irony. The first few messages I saw were innocuous enough, work-related. But then I scrolled further and further. My thumb trembled as it moved down the screen, each message a fresh stab. There they were, a torrent of romantic and explicit exchanges, spanning not weeks, but months. My eyes blurred, but I couldn't stop reading. Pet names I thought were reserved for me. Inside jokes I knew nothing about. Plans for secret meetups, thinly veiled as late-night brainstorms. The words swirled, a maelstrom of betrayal and deceit. Then I saw it. The messages that truly broke me. Nico had sent her a link to one of my older recordings, a solo piece I was incredibly proud of, a piece that poured out my soul. Sophia's reply. Asterisk ugh. Yeah, Leo's stuff is so predictable. Always the same scales, the same melancholic vibe. So boring. Nico, you're so much more exciting, so much more raw. Asterisk and another. Asterisk he's always so intense about his music. Thinks he's the next Coltrane. Honestly, it's exhausting sometimes. He just doesn't get it. You understand what I need. Asterisk predictable. Boring. Exhausting. Doesn't get it. The words didn't just sting, they lacerated. She wasn't just cheating. She was systematically dismantling me behind my back, mocking the very essence of my being, the thing I held most sacred. My music, my passion, my identity. She'd taken my vulnerability, my trusting heart, and used it as fodder for her cruel jokes with her lover. The hot sting of tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, that it felt like a physical blow. My chest constricted, my lungs refusing to draw air. The ground beneath me felt like it had dissolved. Sophia emerged from the shower, a towel wrapped around her, humming a tune. She looked at me, saw her phone in my hand, saw the screen, saw my face. Her hum died in her throat. Her eyes narrowed. What are you doing? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I couldn't speak. I just held the phone out, pointing a trembling finger at the screen, at the messages, at the words that had torn my world apart. She looked at the screen, then back at me. A flicker of something, surprise, annoyance, crossed her face, before settling into a cool, almost amused expression. Oh, she said, a small, dismissive laugh escaping her lips. Is that what this is about? Really, Leo? You went through my phone? Her dismissive laughter. That sound, hollow and cruel, resonated more deeply than any jazz chord I'd ever played. It was the sound of my world crumbling. You were mocking me. I finally managed to choke out, my voice raw and unfamiliar. My music. You called it predictable. Boring. You said I was exhausting. She shrugged, unfazed. Well, she said, tilting her head, a smirk playing on her lips. Sometimes the truth hurts, doesn't it? Honestly, Leo, you are a little stuck. I've been trying to tell you that for months. I need someone who pushes me, someone who understands my vision. You're just holding me back. Holding me back. The same words she'd used to deflect my mild jealousy, now weaponized and thrown directly at my shattered heart. It was a complete inversion of reality. I was holding her back. The woman who had been systematically lying to me, gaslighting me, betraying me. The audacity, the sheer, unadulterated cruelty of it, stole whatever breath I had left. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth would crack. The betrayal wasn't just in the cheating. It was in the casual demolition of my self-worth, the effortless way she minimized my pain, turning it back on me as a fault of my own. I don't remember much of the next few days, only fragments. A blur of tears, a suffocating weight on my chest. My apartment, once our shared sanctuary, became a suffocating tomb. I went to work, taught my students, but I was a ghost, moving through the motions, a hollow echo of myself. The music, my solace, my very identity, felt like a cruel joke. Every note I tried to play was laced with her words, predictable, boring, exhausting. My saxophone lay untouched in its case, its brass glinting dully in the shadows, a monument to a love that had proven to be a lie. The spiral was swift and brutal. I stopped eating properly. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, my nights plagued by replays of her dismissive laugh, her cruel words, the graphic messages. I canceled lessons, made excuses. The phone calls from worried friends went unanswered. I'd spend hours staring at the same ceiling I'd stared at weeks before, but now, the emptiness was absolute. My body felt heavy, rooted to the spot, while my mind raced, a hamster on a wheel, replaying every interaction, searching for the signs I'd missed, the cracks in the facade I'd ignored. I was lost in a sea of self-doubt and self-loathing. How could I have been so blind? So foolish? Weeks bled into each other. My apartment became messy, cluttered, a physical manifestation of my inner chaos. The vibrant colors of our bohemian life seemed muted, dull. I was a broken record, stuck on a single, agonizing track. My prized Selmer Mark VI, the instrument that had been with me through every triumph and heartache, felt like a burden, a reminder of everything I had lost, everything I had failed at. It symbolized my ambition, my identity, and now, it felt tainted, a witness to my humiliation. One afternoon, I sat there, staring at the saxophone case, a profound emptiness gnawing at me. My savings were dwindling. My landlord was calling. I hadn't worked in weeks. I needed to eat. I needed to pay rent. And I knew, with a chilling clarity, that I needed help. Real help. Not just from friends, but professional help. But therapy cost money, money I didn't have. My gaze drifted from the case to my reflection in a darkened window. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, a stranger stared back. And then, a strange thought surfaced, clear and cold. If I truly wanted to heal, truly wanted to move forward, I needed to shed the old skin, burn the old bridges. This wasn't just about money. It was about severing a tie, a painful, symbolic act of surrender and new beginnings. I took the Selmer to a vintage instrument shop downtown, a place I'd frequented for years, a place where I felt understood. The owner, an old grizzled saxophonist named Arthur, looked at me, then at the horn, a silent understanding passing between us. He didn't ask why. He just nodded, his eyes sad. He gave me a fair price, more than enough to cover several months of therapy. As I walked out of the shop, the familiar weight of the case gone from my hand, a strange mix of profound grief and a nascent sense of liberation washed over me. It felt like tearing off a limb, agonizing, but necessary. It was my breaking point and my first step towards healing. Therapy was hard. It was ugly. It was like sifting through the wreckage of a collapsed building, piece by painful piece. Dr. Evans, a kind, older woman with gentle eyes, helped me navigate the labyrinth of my grief, my anger, my crushing self-doubt. She helped me understand gaslighting, the insidious way it erodes your reality, making you question your own sanity. She validated my feelings, told me that what I experienced was real, that my reactions were normal. She helped me separate Sophia's cruelty from my own worth. It was a slow, arduous process, like learning to breathe again after being underwater for too long. Slowly, painfully, I began to surface. I started packing up Sophia's things, carefully, methodically, boxing them up for her to collect, an act of detachment. I found a new, smaller apartment in Pilsen, a neighborhood bursting with vibrant street art and a different kind of energy. It was a clean slate, away from the ghosts of Logan Square. Each box I packed, each item I moved, was a step towards reclaiming my space, my life. The world slowly regained its color. The city's hum, once a mournful drone, began to sound more like a pulse again. The wound was still there, a deep, jagged scar, but it was no longer bleeding. I started going for long walks, listening to the cacophony of the city, letting the sounds wash over me, trying to find the music in it again. One day, walking past a pawn shop, I saw a saxophone in the window. It wasn't a Selmer Mark VI. It was a battered, inexpensive student model, probably made in Taiwan, certainly lacking the rich history and resonant tone of my old horn. But something about it called to me. It was unpretentious, unburdened by expectation, just a vessel for sound. I walked in, asked the price, and bought it. It felt right. There was no grand ceremony, no emotional attachment to its past. It was just a saxophone, a tool. I started playing again. At first, it was hesitant, fragile. The cheap horn didn't have the same buttery feel, the same full voice. But I didn't care. I played for myself, alone in my new apartment, the windows open to the Pilsen air. I played simple scales, familiar melodies, letting the sound fill the empty spaces around me and the empty spaces within me. There was no pressure to be the next Coltrane, no fear of being called predictable. It was just me, the horn, and the music. Then, a flyer caught my eye at a local coffee shop. Open jam night, anonymous players welcome. A small, unassuming club tucked away on a side street. My heart pounded, but this time, it was a different kind of fear, a nervous anticipation. I went. I didn't announce myself. I just picked up my new, humble horn and joined the chorus. The notes I played were tentative at first, then gained confidence. They weren't grand, intricate solos. They were raw, honest, stripped-down improvisations, reflecting the journey I had been on. They were my voice, not molded to anyone else's expectations, not filtered through anyone else's gaze. I discovered a new freedom in the anonymity, in the simplicity of playing for the sheer joy of it. I found a new voice in my playing, a unique blend of vulnerability and resilience. It wasn't about impressing Sophia, or any woman, or any critic. It was about connection, about expression, about finding the truth in the melody. I started playing more often, in small, smoky clubs, sometimes just on street corners. I wasn't Leo Maxwell, the promising jazz saxophonist. I was Leo, a musician who had lost his way and found it again, not in the accolades, but in the heart of the music itself. The scar from Sophia's betrayal is still there. It probably always will be. It's a reminder of how deeply I loved, and how profoundly I was hurt. But it's also a reminder of my strength, my capacity to heal, to rebuild. I've learned to trust my own instincts again, to listen to the quiet whispers of my gut, to protect my own heart. I'm still Leo Maxwell, still a jazz saxophonist, still teaching, still living in the beautiful, chaotic hum of Chicago. But I'm different now. I'm whole on my own terms. The music I play carries a different weight, a deeper resonance, born from the crucible of pain and the slow, steady process of self-discovery. It's not just music anymore. It's my story, told in every note, a testament to surviving the silence and finding my own, true harmony.